Just a quick disclaimer before I get started on the tutorial. I talk about the shortcuts I use in the actual tutorial for the Bezier tool as 5 and the Shape tool shortcut as 2. These aren't the actual default shortcuts for these particular tools. I custom assign those numbers to them for more efficient use and quicker work when I'm drawing vector detail within CorelDraw. If you would like to also customize these tools to these shortcuts, you can do so by going up to the tool menu in the menu bar up top and go down to customization, and you click on that. It'll open up a dialog box, and down here under customization, if you click on commands, you get the basically the area to assign custom shortcuts. All of the tools within CorelDraw are housed under the toolbox grouping here. To find, they're in alphabetical order, so if you click down here on Bezier and then click this shortcut keys tab, you get the area to assign custom shortcuts. If by chance the tool already has a shortcut, it'll show down here on current shortcut keys. That's why when I click on Bezier, it's already assigned number 5. And there is a difference between the numbers at the top of the keyboard and the numpad. I have them assigned to the keys at the top of the keyboard, not the numpad. I believe if you use the number pad to assign a shortcut, it includes the numpad prefix. The reason I have it on the numbers at the top of the keyboard is because I am right-handed, so I want to keep my right hand on the mouse as much as possible when I'm working, instead of having to take my hand off the mouse to hit the 5 on the numpad, versus using my left hand at the top of the keyboard. So yes, by default, the Bezier tool doesn't have a shortcut assigned to it, but the Shape tool down here that will be used in the tutorial by default is assigned the F10 key on the keyboard as its shortcut, which just didn't work for me, so I just reassigned it to the number 2, because again it works better for me efficiency wise, and none of the numbers at the top of the keyboard are assigned to a tool within Corel to start with, so they're all free to be assigned new tools. So that's the short disclaimer before we get going on this tutorial. If you want to do that beforehand, or if you find other keys you'd prefer to assign these tools to, by all means do what works best for you and what's going to be most efficient for you in terms of drawing vector detail. Let's get started. Alright, so in this kind of quick tutorial, we're gonna just kind of go over the basics of the Shape tool, or the Bezier tool here. As you can see on the left hand toolbar here, the 5th tool down, if it isn't already selected, if you left click and hold, you can select from different options, but for this one we're primarily going to be covering the Bezier tool, because for drawing logos or detail or whatever you need to vectorize here within Corel, the Bezier tool is a better option than, say, the pen tool, and we'll kind of go over that in a bit, but you can either select it manually by clicking on the Bezier tool here, or as you can see, the shortcut I have assigned, I'm not sure if it's standard or default with CorelDraw, but I've assigned the number 5 to it for quick access. I often switch, when using the Bezier tool, I often switch between the Bezier tool and the Shape tool here, which I have assigned to number 2, because the Shape tool allows you to move your various vector points, and it's kind of quick to just hit 5 and 2 to switch back and forth when you are drawing your detail. But so with that, we'll kind of go over kind of the basics of the Bezier tool. If you've never used a pen-like pen tool or Bezier tool, either in CorelDraw or Adobe Illustrator, it's very simple. You just left click to set a vector point and just keep clicking until you finish your shape, and to close the shape you want to click back on your original starting vector point so that it becomes a closed shape, which you can tell that it's a closed shape by the fact that you can have a fill color in it. If it wasn't closed, or if it isn't closed, when you assign a fill, it's not going to show up. So you need to close it to get a solid editable shape. For this initial shape, like, I just have straight line segments. That happens when you just click once and don't do anything else. You get just straight line segments. If you are so inclined, when you are drawing to where you want to have curve shapes, when you click your anchor, your vector points, if you click and hold, you can get your Bezier handle and you can get your curves. And by default, the vector tangent, the handles here, will be a smooth shape. So the next point you click, you'll have a smooth curve right here, like along this. From this vector point, it'll be a smooth curve. There won't be any sort of kinks in the line. If you do want that, when you click and drag to get your Bezier handle, you can double click on this anchor point here, and it terminates the other half, I guess, of the Bezier handle, so you can get a sharp corner. Or if you wanted, another new kind of Bezier curve, where it has a kind of cornerish point to it, you would just double click on the anchor point and then click and drag a new Bezier handle. And then same thing, just finish out your shape to get a solid object. So those are kind of the basics of the Bezier tool. The reason I think artists should prefer using the Bezier tool to the pen tool is for the one simple option that it doesn't have. It operates the same way as the Bezier tool, where you click and drag and you get solid lines. You can click and hold and get your Bezier handle. But the one thing it doesn't do is when you click and get your Bezier handle, and if you didn't want a smooth curve here, if you wanted to start a new Bezier curve with that kind of corner point, when you double click here to terminate, when you double click, it ends your segment, so the next point you click will be a new object. It doesn't continue on the same way the Bezier tool did here. If you click and drag and terminate, though, you can restart it, but again, it creates this smooth tangent. You can't terminate it and start a new Bezier curve from here. It just keeps terminating. That's why, in terms of kind of intuitive drawing for objects and detail, the Bezier tool is I guess better designed for how the artist might work, because you can get all the different shapes and lines and corners in one fluid and consistent drawing segment, I guess. You don't have to switch tools or anything. You can just go straight, create your shape, all at once. If when you are drawing your shape and you don't quite get close enough where it closes off, you can then switch to the shape tool, which again, shortcut number 2, and you can click and drag the last anchor point that you created and drag it on top, and it will join it to form a closed shape. Or you can, if you're not concerned with where this point is starting, you can marquee select both vector points, and up here you can click this join two nodes button, and it will join them into one anchor point, and you have a solid shape then. If by chance you were way off, like so, when you click to join the two nodes with this button up top here, you'll notice that we'll separate them to exaggerate the point. When you just marquee select the 2 points and click this button, it's going to average the distance and join them in the center of that distance. So when you click it, you'll notice that it joins in the center of where those two vector points were. This can be a problem if you had your, if this was your starting point and it was drawn on, if you're tracing or drawing a logo or detail and you want this point to stay where it is and you meant to join these two, then the best option is to select your last anchor point and just drag it on top, and it will join to that original starting anchor point. So those are kind of the basics of the kind of Bezier tool and creating kind of vector detail. One last option is if this was where you wanted this point and this point here, but you wanted to close off this and you just forgot to draw the last line, you can either click back on the Bezier tool and click this last point and then click on the starting one, and it creates a line segment between those points and creates your solid shape. Another option is when you have your line segment selected and you click on the shape tool here. Again, if you marquee select these 2 points, instead of using the join two nodes, you can use this extend curve to close, and basically it just, when you click it, it just creates a line between the 2 selected anchor points, and then again you have a closed shape. Yeah, so those are just the basics of the Bezier tool. It's a very powerful and intuitive drawing tool. Once you kind of get the hang of it, you can create detail pretty easily. One other thing is, if sometimes you have a very let's go back. One of the drawbacks of creating your kind of curves as you go with the Bezier handle here is that by default, once you've created your shape and you want to kind of edit it, if you click the shape tool, shortcut 2, when you select an anchor point, by default, if you create the curve as you go, the default setting for the Bezier handles will be set to symmetrical. So when you click and kind of edit and want to move the handles around to change the shape of your curve, as you can see, when you click on one of those one side of the Bezier handle, you can see the length of each side is the same, hence the symmetrical. If you don't want that, if you just want to be able to adjust the lengths of the handles for the curves independently, when you have your anchor point selected, if you right click on that anchor point, you get a drop down menu, and right down in this kind of third section here, as you can see, it's set to symmetrical. That's when you get the same distance on each side of the Bezier handles. If you want to adjust them independently but still maintain this kind of tangentially smooth curve, then you want this option, this second option here, switch to smooth. So when you click on one side, you're maintaining this smooth curve, but you're adjusting only the length of the Bezier handle on one side at a time. So you still get your smooth curve here, but you can adjust the lengths of the curve and the shape of it independently on each side of this anchor point. If you can do them one at a time, or you can marquee select and switch them all to smooth. That way, when you are going back and editing your shape, you don't have to keep clicking on one at a time. You can do a mass selection and change them all to smooth, all back to symmetrical. And if you notice, this anchor point was my last one. I just created a solid line here. This anchor point, when I marquee selected, it's set to symmetrical, but as you can see, it hasn't changed to a smooth curve, and this is just the default way that CorelDraw works. Like I said, it technically is set to symmetrical, so in order to get that smooth curve, you have to go in and grab the handles, the Bezier handle, one of them, and when you kind of pull and adjust it, you see that it switches to being a smooth curve. If you wanted all your if you just wanted to start fresh and create these curves all manually, you can actually we'll go this last option, this cusp option. While the smooth and symmetrical leaves all your curves to be smooth lines. If you switch the anchor points to cusp, when you go in and adjust, you can get the cusp kind of eliminates the smoothness of it, and you can get a corner point by adjusting the handles independently. If you have this and you don't want it and you want to go back to smooth, when you click that, it will switch it back to smooth and kind of average that kind of curve out from the corner anchor point. If you click it again and go smooth, it just, like I said, averages out that curve, and then you can go in and adjust again. If you wanted to start fresh with all lines, you can click in the second box to line, and it just creates all straight line segments between the anchor points. If you do that, when you select an anchor point, you don't get the Bezier handle option anymore. It just becomes straight line segments that you can move your anchor points to create your detail. Like if you At which point, once you are ready, you have all your anchor points set where you want them, and then now you want to go back and make all the line segments smooth. You would have to then go back and select the points you want to be able to adjust, marquee select them, and then right click again on any one of the selected anchor points, and you want to click on this to curve option. As you can see, once you do that, you'll get, once you select a single anchor point, you'll get your Bezier handle indicators. And as you can see, by default, once you've clicked on the to curve, it defaults to the cusp option, which leaves them in their kind of leaves all the corners, so you can click on either anywhere on the line segment to adjust your curve, or you can click on the Bezier handle to get the curve you want. Again, as you can see, when it's in the cusp option, it leaves the corner point, but if you select either smooth or symmetrical, it's going to average out that curve between those two lines. And then you can go in and adjust your Bezier handles to get the shape you want. Again, when the anchor points are set to either smooth or symmetrical, as you showed earlier, clicking on the actual line segment itself, you can kind of adjust to the curve you want. Same thing works when you're set to line. You can grab the line, it's the segment itself, and it will move. It will maintain the angle and distance between the 2 points when you select, and just move them to where you want, or you can move individually one at a time. Yeah, so it's just playing around and getting comfortable with how the Bezier tool and the shape tool kind of work in conjunction with each other to create the shapes and detail you want. One last kind of set, this kind of fourth area here, the two options you may find yourself using are the join and break apart options. So if you wanted to kind of break the shape apart to add more line segments to your shape, you can marquee select an anchor point, right click on that anchor point, and if it's currently joined, as you can see because of the grayed out option here. If you click break apart, now you have two separate anchor points to adjust and move around, and then you can either go back to your Bezier tool and click on one of the anchor points to add in more detail, or you can just click the extend curve button up top here to add in a segment. So yeah, it's kind of the basic overview of the Bezier tool and the shape tool and how they work together. Like I said, once you get the handle of it, quickly drawing detail becomes pretty intuitive and kind of second nature. You know, switching back and forth between the Bezier tool and the Shape tool to create the shapes and detail you want is pretty easy, and like I said, it's very powerful in terms of the detail you can create and the types of graphics you want to create within CorelDraw. You can do a lot. These are probably the two most often used tools for creating detail. Getting a handle and starting there is kind of the first thing you want to do when kind of picking up CorelDraw to create vector graphics and detail. I hope you found this tutorial and overview helpful, and you're able to quickly pick up the Bezier tool and get creating. Thank you for watching, and have fun creating.